For your information, my wife battled illness for many years before passing away in January 2019. After more than a year, I, a 33-year-old man, began dating a close friend I had known for a long time. It has been almost a year and 7 months since my girlfriend and I started dating. It took me by surprise, but I decided to give it a shot because we seemed to click. My friends and parents were also aware of our friendship. We began telling people a few weeks ago that we were expecting our first child. My sister, who is 26, was home from college when we made the announcement because she is currently in her second trimester. She was immediately and outspokenly opposed to the entire idea after we got acquainted at our parents' house. She is so ashamed to be related to a brother like me who would cheat on his sick wife, things that didn't happen, that he asks, "How could I do this to my wife? Didn't I care about her?" She went on to ask us what our children would think if they discovered they were the offspring of an affair. My father became enraged with her and urged her to go if she couldn't behave civilly, which she did. I found that extremely frightening, but I assumed it was shock-related. She continued to talk to me after that, mainly about how ashamed she feels to have a brother who would start over with someone else after my wife passed away. It was previously conveyed to her that we began dating more than a year later, so there was never any indication that it was an affair. After giving her a few weeks to calm down, I made the decision to message her to see if we could speak. She claims that she doesn't hang out with pigs that cheat. I informed her that she probably doesn't want to be linked with the money of a cheating pig because I have been supporting her for the past 2 years to pay for her college courses so she can be a full-time student working part-time instead of the other way around. At least according to my mother, that's where it appears I'm a fool. It impacts my sister's schooling over trivial remarks. Given how much this would set her back if she couldn't pay for her studies on her own, even my sister thinks I'm beyond low for trying to penalize her for speaking the truth. Her time to finish her BA would be extended because she would have to work a full-time job once more. But why should I pay for her if she feels awkward with me? That's my interpretation. However, perhaps this is simply my rage coming through. Am I the foolish one? I'm attempting to punish your other sister for telling the truth, she claims. That's not what you're doing. No. You're refusing to give generously to someone who was wrongly accusing you of being an adulterer. Not the fool. Please keep her away from your girlfriend and allow her to pay for her school. It's stressful enough to be pregnant, but it must be more taxing to hear such hurtful remarks from a family member. You are entirely correct. The so-called dirty money is not for her to utilize. Isn't it kind of embarrassing for her to be 26 years old and still not be earning money? Perhaps she ought to use her time accusing you wrongly to look for employment. You didn't do anything that she is accusing you of, for starters, and it's really none of her dang concern. Give her nothing until she sincerely apologizes, and only then if you have a strong emotional bond with her. People have strange ways of dictating sadness, as I discovered when my parents passed away. Here is what I would do, for instance. It's not you, though. At best, your sister is immature. I find what she stated to be almost beyond forgiveness. She can't insult you and still get the money, which makes her angry. That's what I would expect from a teenager, not a woman who is closer to 30. She should foot the bill for college since she doesn't deserve it. She is 26 years old. Perhaps she is not suitable for college after all, if she is so foolish as to bite the hand that feeds her. And foolish enough to believe that a pregnancy at the moment of Op's wife's death signifies an affair. It is in no way your duty to assist her, especially in light of the nasty remarks she made about your more recent relationship. However, I would worry about what your sister would say to her later on when she starts nibbling. Sister needs to, in my opinion, sincerely apologize and swear she won't bring up the matter ever again or risk being cut off. Even while your mother may currently support her, I have a feeling that after her grandson is born, she will become more focused on that, and your sister will need to take a back seat. With a few close pals, my 27-year-old spouse has been organizing a trip for the past 4 years or so. Regrettably, the journey continued getting delayed because of unfavorable world events, financial difficulties, and the deaths of some of his friends' families. In 2 months, my spouse will be able to depart at last. The problem I, 21, have is that he's leaving me close to my due date, and I'm pregnant. Since this is my first child, I don't want to give birth by myself. My mom is mentally sick, and my dad passed away, therefore my only family is my spouse. As such, I need his support during this process. I'm begging him to reschedule the vacation so he can be here for his daughter and myself, but he's making me feel horrible. It's really not that big of a deal, he told me. He learned that the nurse was very encouraging and that the birth of his son from a prior relationship barely took an hour at the hospital. And when I leave the hospital alone, I don't want to take care of his son. He has sole custody and intends to be gone for a month. His son spends every other weekend at his mother's. His mother won't even show up sometimes. When I go home from the hospital, he hasn't decided where his son will go. His sister offered to look after him while I'm in the hospital, but she has a full-time job and is unable to take excessive time off. He asked me to drop the matter, saying he's been looking forward to this for a long time and that he'd be able to manage everything on his own. In addition to telling me that women often take care of children after returning home from the hospital, he even offered to pay me for all of my struggles. I know this wasn't precisely intended, and I'm really sorry about the whole thing. A big part of me wants to forget about the problem and figure out how to handle things on my own. His pals are referring to me as a wet blanket, really. I don't want to ruin everyone's fun by acting like a damp blanket. Here, am I the fool? Not the fool. When he has sole custody of his son, which is close to your due date, he will be gone for a month. This man is incredibly disturbed. You should have the support of your spouse, who is also your child's father, even if you have the easiest delivery ever. As you get used to taking care of your child, you'll need someone at home to take care of things. Furthermore, even though I get it's not pleasant to consider it, he must be present in case something goes wrong. Opie, good luck. I hope you get the help you need. Opie can pass away or require an urgent C-section. If an ex had a simple birth in an hour, doesn't that mean that half of all births end in a C-section? Does not imply that is the norm. This individual downplays the risk and quantity of work involved in labor. Even if he didn't go, something tells me he wouldn't be of any assistance. He's most likely the type of guy who doesn't know where things are in the house, how to cook, when to take out the trash, what allergies his first child has, how to take care of a baby while your partner takes a shower, etc. Let's go right to the point and use some assistance, shall we? Furthermore, I don't think his son arrived in an hour. He was only present for an hour during the labor, so I'd wager money man is simply venting to himself. His buddies are free to cancel the trip if they have problems, but to be furious about your partner's month-long absence after giving birth is to act like a wet blanket. You shouldn't have to take care of a baby because it takes two to tame one. Apart from all of this, he is more than content to miss his child's birth. Is he being so self-centered, or is he avoiding this because he's not ready? Why do you hang around with him? Does he think that when you give birth, you will care for his boy on your own? Junk. He really is the worst. You're 21 and he's 27, and you've been dating for 3 years, is anyone doubting that? Run, OP. I'm 36 years old and childless. My 2 sisters are named Annie and Lisa. Lisa has 2 boys, Austin, who is tween, and Max, who is between, while Annie has a tiny girl named Leela and a pretween named Kevin. They both have some financial hardship, but I'm well off. I so propose to take my nephews on a vacation with me this year. Annie understands that I don't feel at all secure being alone with my niece because she is so young. To check if they get along and if I'm ready for taking them to seaside with me for 14 days, I told my sisters to bring the boys to my apartment for the weekend. When the lads initially arrived, we were having a great time. We played soccer, watched a movie, and I got us some pizza. I woke them up the following morning and fed them porridge. I informed Kevin he couldn't have waffles for breakfast today, but we could prepare them for supper or breakfast the following day. He flung it on the floor and yelled, "I have waffles on the weekend." He declared his dislike for cereal. I suggested he just have some fruit or toast with peanut butter. He screamed at me for failing to prepare his waffles. He also tore up my shirt that day, accusing me of being a bad person for not letting him have cookies for lunch and asking him to eat his vegetables before I gave him ice cream. He was terrifying. Austin and Max behaved admirably. I told Annie what had happened. When my sisters arrived to pick them up, and she responded, "Oh, he's just high-spirited." I informed her that I was not bringing him on vacation. Additionally, I told Lisa that I would be happy to bring her boys along, and they were ecstatic. I've been getting a lot of flack from my parents and some relatives for treating the kids differently and for not letting a child go to Seaside after he misbehaved once. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. I cry for Kevin's prospects. Did your sister tell the complete tale to your parents and aunts, or only part of it? Suggest that they go on a vacation with Kevin instead. I'll have my popcorn ready and wait. Not the fool. That's not misbehaving once. If you took him, that would be a warning of a terrifying 2 weeks. She definitely wants to take a break, but holy crap, I would have sent a warning and advice on how to handle that kind of behavior if my kids were like way. Naturally, once someone is stuck, you don't let them find out. Agreed. The appropriate response as a responsible parent is, thanks for informing me about what happened, we will have a talk at home. I'm the beloved grandmother that everyone aspires to spend time with. However, if you mistreat me, please return to your mother, and I'll see you later. Raising children entitles you to spoil your grandchildren. You get to raise your grandchildren if you spoil your children. It's a privilege, not a right, to go with you. Furthermore, how are you going to stay in touch with him while you're far from his parent if he keeps acting in this manner and your sister believes it's typical behavior? It will be a nightmare, and he might be wounded, since you can very well imagine that the next thing he'd say would be, "You're not my mom, I don't have to listen to you." I am a man in my 40s. My 62-year-old father enjoys leading a very modest and isolated existence. He's been quite withdrawn since my mom's infidelity led to her divorce and her running away with a younger man. He asked me if he may construct a sub-building on the back of my land and reside there after a year of the worldwide issue. The 6 acres of land with a few trees was the property my grandparents held, and I purchased it. The spot where my dad built his small cabin isn't even visible. All he's done is turn a Home Depot shed into his tiny home. He maintains a generator on hand in case he needs it, but he has power via a wire that runs from my house. Additionally, his modest building is peaceful and has simply the bare needs. When he's not working, he spends his free time in there reading or watching DVDs. He makes his living driving trucks, and after their divorce, my mom took away a significant portion of his retirement. As a result, he has chosen to live a simple, quiet life. He uses a tiny fridge to keep food cold, a wood burner for heating, and a microwave or gas cooker for cooking. He constructed his own composting toilet and uses our well's pipe to supply him with water. He's not totally disconnected either, because he has a cell phone that functions perfectly down there. He now treasures that peace, so I leave him alone 90% of the time. But some of my family members don't like the way he lives, and they're labeling me an enabler. Still, he's content with his current lifestyle. He's simply in my garden, but my sister and aunt are putting pressure on me to persuade him to return to civilization. He's not even bothered by my kids without their permission. He enjoys spending time with his grandchildren and usually comes over for supper, so there's no conflict between us. However, we don't bother him in that cabin since he wants it to remain that way when he's alone. However, my sister, aunt, and a few other people never stopped putting pressure on Dad to either acquire an apartment or move in with one of them. All of them are from the city, and they call his style of living dirty. However, he does his clothes on a regular basis and maintains a spotless home. Not only can my relatives not think of a good reason to keep him in his cabin, but they also won't give up on it. They claim that because I've refused to mediate this, I'm gradually harming him. I don't think they're lying for a second though, because he looks healthier than ever. They keep telling me that I'm simply waiting for him to pass away alone though, and that's starting to get to me. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. Your father is content and well, they can sulk. Confirm. In principle, your dad should be able to convince them to back off if you leave things alone. Furthermore, you are unable to avoid any interactions where they bring it up if it doesn't work, at least not for you. Hopefully, they'll pick up on it eventually. You should practice yodeling every time they mention your father's living situation because there is a man who yodel every time his mother mentions them having a child. Opie, you're helping your dad out, he's secure, content, and in good health. Tell your family members that your father is free to lead his life as he pleases. He engages in conversation when he feels like it, and your kids are acting more politely than the rest of the family. If they can't accept your dad as happy, perhaps you shouldn't have them around as much. I think I'm not an idiot, but a lot of people are telling me I am. I'm a female 24 years old in a predicament. My water broke a week ago when my spouse was at work. When I tried to reach him on the phone, he was at work and had set it to Do Not Disturb. The only person I could call was my 31-year-old brother-in-law, Mark. My parents are out of state, and my in-laws were over an hour away. Although Mark is only 10 minutes away, my husband and I don't get along because Mark damaged my husband's prior marriages by having an affair with his ex-wife. For this reason, I was apprehensive to call Mark. Mark stayed with me at the hospital until my husband arrived, despite numerous texts and calls from family members attempting to alert him. Because Mark was there, when my husband arrived, he got upset and started a commotion, forcing Mark to leave. He accused me of lying to him, cheating on him, and other things. I threw him out of the room because I couldn't handle the stress. Because of what my spouse did, I no longer want to be around him, so I'm currently staying at my parents' house. My husband's family is calling me an idiot for sending him out of the delivery room and not letting him see the baby, and I'm getting texts and calls about it. That's untrue because I provided him an opportunity to visit, but he can only see the kid if we return. Am I the foolish one? Your spouse had his phone set to Do Not Disturb while he was at work, and you were all set to pop. If he's not going to answer calls for 8 hours a day, how on earth did he expect to be present for the birth, let alone how on earth did he expect you to have a way to the hospital? I simply don't know how this came to be. Like, did none of you discuss this beforehand? Did you both anticipate that the infant would arrive after work hours and behave well? Not the fool. He disregarded your attempts to reach him as well as those of other family members, and then he was bold enough to accuse you while yelling and screaming. Annie refuses to visit the infant. Opie, not at all, nah, no sir. While your foolish spouse had his phone turned off while at work, knowing that your water pipe would burst, Mark was your hero. Who takes that action? I am aware of someone who believes that he is the center of the universe. This is proof positive that your foolish husband damaged those connections. I doubt it was the brother-in-law. I understand why the ex-couples could have chosen Mark over the trash husband. LOL, Opie, I suppose your brother-in-law is a good man, and your husband, in my perspective, destroyed his prior marriages by acting indifferently towards his partners and with unjustified jealousy. Put ex-husband in there. Not the fool. I apologize, Opie, he prioritized his animosity against his brother over your and your child's well-being. He can therefore no longer claim to have witnessed the baby's birth. Now he's trying to talk you into coming home by utilizing your child as a negotiating chip. You and your child must flee if he is only interested in being involved if you follow his instructions to the letter. Better is what you and your child deserve.